Hey Kirby. Hello everyone, Ryan here, and today I'm going to be doing a review of the new Billy Woods album titled Known Unknowns. Billy Woods is a New York rapper who is very underground and not very well known, but he, to me, is one of the legends in the underground at the minute, to be honest. He has put out some incredible albums over the past few years. Albums from History Will Absolve Me to Today I Wrote Nothing. Those were some of my favourites of the years they came out, and I was highly anticipating a new Billy Woods album in 2017 too, and I've got to say I'm not disappointed with what he gave us. Once again, Billy Woods has come out with an album which questions the critics' ability to review lyrics, because this guy is such a wordsmith and has such intricate bars and lines that it's really hard to decipher everything he's saying, and I'm going to attempt to do this in my review, but I'm probably not even going to scratch the surface of everything he says because he's just that good. This time around, he's brought along Blockhead for production, and in case you don't know who Blockhead is, he has done a shitload of songs for A$AP Rock. He's done some songs for Cage and countless other rappers as well, Despot, many underground rappers that some people may or may not have heard of, but they are all worth checking out anyway. And I've got to say, this production has fit Billy Woods' style so well. This is gotta be some of the best production on hip hop I've heard all year. And it has made me gravitate towards this album even more, because although I loved his last album, Today I Wrote Nothing, I think this album tops it just because of how good the production is this time around. There are 18 tracks on this album. It's almost an hour long, which may put people off, but let me just tell you that each track somehow sounds completely different from the next in terms of the beats and the instrumentals that are being used, and I'm not actually sure how that was able to be done, because although they have a similar style across the album, there's that rough around the edges kind of dirty, gritty 90s style New York beats, but there's also this sense of completely different sounds across each track that makes them stand out in comparison to the previous track. And of course, the variety of lyrics help this too, because there are so many different song topics on this album. Billy Woods just does not stick to one thing at all. I really like the chorus on Unstuck, where he says, roll the dice, fuck around, lost your little life, double or nothing, it's only right. And I like the notion on this track that if you don't have full control of your life, then things will go completely wrong. And he also references on this track how people may often sit back and let things go wrong without really doing anything, or without really getting involved to change anything that could go wrong. It might not exactly be the most original thing in the world, but like I've said, Billy Woods doesn't exactly hit cliches very often. He does this in ways that not many other people would do. Like on Superpredator as well, where to me I believe here he's referencing the changing of hip hop landscape, with the first line going on about let off in the club mad loud, don't everybody go get sad now, as if like people aren't exactly going to the clubs to get completely high off their minds and have a good time, whereas people will get high off their minds and instead they'll just get sad, which I think is quite a clever interpretation of the way things are. But also here, I think he's talking about how hip-hop beefs aren't exactly how they used to be, and they're not exactly nitty and gritty like they once were in the 90s. And also, I like how he's talking about rappers who buy other people's styles, like the line people ride your wave like half-pipe, catchphrase and merchandise, which I totally agree with, because these days it is less about the lyrics and more about that one little thing that keeps people hyped about the artist, whether it be a meme or some kind of thing about that rapper, like a little catchphrase they may have in their music or something like that. But not only do we get him kind of calling out other rappers in the game, he also talks about his own struggles in the game too on Police Came to My Show, where he's saying how he plays shows to no one and he gains no profits from it. I like the line where he says, zero merch sales later and I'm at the bar, and it's just such a weird perspective to be coming from a hip-hop song, because often you get the braggadocious lyrics, and of course Billy Woods does do that too, and he has every right to, since he's such a good way of like taking down other people. But also you don't really get that side of hip hop where rappers are struggling to get people at their shows, despite the fact that they've been rapping for years and they've had countless amount of albums out. It's just a real shame, to be honest. Especially considering this guy made Groundhogs Day, and this song is one of the best on this album. This is fantastic. I love the female vocal sample in the background. Also, the song itself has this clever concept as it plays to the story of Groundhog Day, with the line that keeps cropping up: I wake up and smoke weed, but then he goes on to list off some things that he does throughout the day, and then the line comes back again as if he's literally living Groundhog Day. It's a very clever way to do this kind of thing. I do appreciate what he did on this track. And also, as I mentioned earlier, A$AP Rock, he collaborates with Billy Woods on the track Wonderful, and it turns out to be a fantastic way of doing this because these two work so well together. Like, A$AP Rock fits on a Billy Woods track so well. Of course he does, though, because of Blockhead on production, who has worked with A$AP Rock before. It just seems like the perfect fit for this album. And also there's this MF Doomish kind of chorus, which I think is really cool. And as I'm on the choruses of this album, I want to mention that there are some hooks on this album that do go on a little bit, get a little bit repetitive, just for the sake of kind of overdoing it, but it is good. Like, I do appreciate them because they do get stuck in my head, but it's just, they kind of repeats the same line over and over and over, like, just say he's the best, let's not argue, just say he's the best, let's not argue. And there are a lot like this on the album, but it's not exactly the worst thing in the world. It's just a little bit niggly on my ears just to hear it over and over again, but like I said, it does get stuck in my head and it is really effective. And I think it actually turns out to be the best kind of element of this album, because I don't think this was something that Billy Woods had done previously on his older albums as much as this. And I can't exactly deny that I do love the chorus on the opening track, Bush League. It's probably the best chorus on the whole album. But yeah, overall I think this is a fantastic hip hop release. I mean, there's only really Source Awards that I wasn't too into, especially, you know, the Heart is Cold Like Russia sample, which is in the track near the beginning and then crops up again. But 1 out of 18 songs is a pretty damn good rate for an album. You know, especially considering this track then is followed up by Strawman, which makes up for that last track because of the fantastic boomy beat and one of the best beats on the whole album. And there isn't really that much else negative to say. I think this is a great album. Going to be one of my favourite hip hop releases of the year again because it's Billy Woods and he just seems to do that. And I think if you're a fan of A$AP Rock, Cage, and LP as well, that early LP stuff is definitely an influence on this album, then I'd say definitely go for this. Make sure you do check it out because this is going to be underrated and probably fly over most people's heads, but I'm going to be listening to this a lot more as the year goes on, and I'm going to say it's a B+. Give it a listen. Also, if you like this review, make sure you subscribe and have a good day.